Hey guys, this is Allison from Allylat Creations. How are you? It's getting humid again. So I'm going to read the Secret Doctrine, and I left off on stanza 4, the 4th part. Before I start, please help me out and hit that like button. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already, and sharing is caring. It gets the word out. And if I've given you a light bulb moment, a mic drop, a new book to read, something to look into, an epiphany, please consider helping and supporting my work. I don't like to ask for help, or knowledge should be free, but knowledge doesn't pay my bills. And I am in desperation at this point. So if you can help me out in any one of those ways, pass it along, because maybe somebody might be able to help me if it's not you. So, yes. My videos have been a little slower, so I do apologize. It's been extremely hot in New York with the humidity. I can handle the heat, it's the humidity. And I went to the doctor. I lost a shit ton of weight because I'm only eating once a day, and now that it's hot, I am doing a lot of heavy lifting. Okay, I can't say I do heavy lifting because that's not good for my back, but I've been shoving boxes and crap for a few days now, and I've been sweating, and I only eat once a day. So guess what? I lost a lot of weight, which is not healthy. So I've been busy boxing up my life so that I can get the hell out of here, so I can move, get myself situated, and then find a job in another state. That is the goal. So just want to let everybody know what's been going on. I still have the internet. I don't know how, but I'm going to go with it. So we're going to go and start. This was the army of the voice, the divine cemetery. The sparks of the seven are subject to, and the servants of, the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and the seventh of the seven. These sparks are called spheres, triangles, cubes, lines, and modulars. For thus stands the eternal Nindana, the ho, oi, ha, ho, the permutation of Ohio. The sloka gives again a brief analysis of the hierarchies of the Dayan Kohans, called devas, gods, in India, or the conscious intelligent powers in nature. To this hierarchy correspond the actual types into which humanity may be divided, for humanity as a whole is in reality materialized through as yet imperfect expression thereof. The army of the voice is a term closely connected with the mystery of sound and speech as an effect and corollary of the cause divine thought, as beautifully expressed by P. Christian, the learned author of the History of Magic and of Le Homme Rouge des Trulele. I'm sorry, I don't do French. The words spoken by, as well as the name of every individual, largely determined his future fate. Why? Because, quote, when our soul mind creates or evokes a thought, the representative sign of that thought is self-engraved upon the astral fluid, which is the receptacle and, so to say, the mirror of the manifestation of being, end quote. Quote, the sign expresses the thing is the hidden or occult virtue of the sign. To pronounce a word is to invoke a thought and make it present. The magnetic potency of human speech is the commencement of every manifestation in the occult world. To utter a name is not only to define a being, an entity, but to place it under and condemn it through the emission of the word verbum. To the influence of one or more occult potencies, things are for every one of us that which the world makes them while naming them. The word verbum, or the speech of every man, is quite unconsciously to himself a blessing or a curse. This is why our present ignorance about properties or attributes of the idea, as well as about attributes of properties of matter, is often fatal to us. Yes, names and words are either beneficent or maleficent. They are, in a certain sense, either venomous or health-giving, according to the hidden influences attached by supreme wisdom in their elements, that is to say, to the letter which composed them and the numbers correlative to these letters. This is strictly true as an esoteric teaching accepted by all the Eastern schools of occultism, in Sanskrit, as also in the Hebrew and other alphabets. Every letter has its occult meaning and its rationale. It is a cause and effect of a preceding cause, and a combination of these very often produces the most magical effect. The vowels especially contain the most occult and formidable potencies. The mantras, esoterically magical rather than religious, or chanted by the Brahmins, and so are the Vedas and other scriptures. The army of the voice is the prototype of the host of the Logos, or the word of the Sefer Jizra, called in the Secret Doctrine, the one number issued from no number, the one eternal principle. The esoteric theogony begins with one, manifested, therefore not eternal in its present and being, if eternal in its essence, the number of the numbers and numbered, the later proceeding from the voice, the feminine Bach, Sutrupa of the 100 forms or nature. It is from the number 10 or creative nature, the mother, the occult cipher or not, even procreating and multiplying in union with the unit one of the spirit of life, that the whole universe proceeded. In the Anguita, a conversation is given between a Brahma and his wife on the origin of speech and its occult properties. The wife asks how speech came into an existence and which was prior to the other speech or mind. The Brahma tells her that the apana, inspirational breath, becoming Lord, changes that intelligence, which does not understand speech or words, into the state of apana, and thus opens the mind. Thereupon he tells her a story, a dialogue between speech and mind. Both went to the self of being, to the individual higher self. According to the commentator, Arjuna Mazra, and asked him to destroy their doubts and decided which of them proceeded and was superior to the other. To this the Lord said, mind is superior, but speech answered the self of being, saying, I verily yield you your desires, meaning that by speech he acquired what he desired. Thereupon again the self told her that there are two minds, the movable and the immovable. The immovable is with me, he said. The movable is in your dominion of speech, or the plane of matter. To that you are superior, but inasmuch, O beautiful one, as you came personally to speak to me in the way you did, proudly, therefore, O Saravati, you shall never speak after hard exclamation. The goddess speech, Sarvarati, a later form or aspect of Vak, the goddess also of secret learning or esoteric wisdom, verily dwelt always between the Purana and the Apana. But, O noble one, going with the Apana wind, vital air, through impelled without the prana, expirational breath, she ran up to the Prajapati Brahma, saying, "Be pleased, O venerable sir." Then the Purana appeared again, nourishing speech, and therefore speech never speaks after hard or inspirational exhalation. It is always noisy or speechless or noiseless. Of these two, the noiseless is the superior to the noisy speech. The speech which is produced in the body by means of the Purana, and which then is transformed into apana, and then becoming assimilated with the undana, physical organs of speech, then finally dwells in the samana at the navel in the form of sound as the material cause of all words, says Arjuna Misra. So speech formerly spoke. Hence the mind is distinguished by reason of its being immovable, and the goddess speech by reason of her being movable. This allegory is at the root of the occult law, which prescribes silence upon the knowledge of certain secret and invisible things perceptible only to the spiritual mind, the sixth sense, and which cannot be expressed by noisy or uttered speech. The chapter of Anguta explains, says Arjuna Misra, paramya, or regulation of the breath in yoga practices. This mode, however, without the previous acquisition of, or at least full understanding of the two higher senses, of which there are 7, as will be shown, pertains rather to the lower yoga. The hatha, so-called, was and still is discountenanced by the arhats. It is injurious to the health and alone can never develop into Raj Yoga. This story is quoted to show how inseparable connected are, in the metaphysics of old, intelligent beings, or rather intelligences with every sense or function, whether physical or mental. The occult claim that there are 7 senses in man as in nature, as there are 7 states of consciousness, is corroborated in the same work. The restraint and regulation of the senses, pranayama, being of the vital winds and breath. The Brahma speaks in of the institution of the 7 sacrificial priests, hotris. He says the nose and the eyes and the tongue and the skin and the ear as the 5th, or smell, sight, taste, touch, and hearing, mind, and understanding are the 7 sacrificial priests separately stationed, and which dwelling in a minute space still do not perceive each other. On the sensuous plane, none of them except mind, for mind says the nose smells not without me, the eye does not take in color, I am eternal chief among all elements. Without me, the senses never shine, like an empty dwelling, or like fires, the flames of which are extinct. Without me, all beginnings, like fuel half dried and half moist, fail to apprehend qualities or objects, even with the senses exerting themselves. This, of course, with regard only to mind on the sensuous plane, spiritual mind, the upper portion or aspect of the impersonal manas, takes no cognizance of the senses in physical man. How well the ancients were acquainted with the correlation of forces and are the recently discovered phenomena of mental and physical faculties and functions, with many more mysteries also, may be found in reading chapters of this in philosophy and mystic learning, priceless work. See the quarrel of the senses about their respective superiority and their taking the Brahman, the Lord of all creatures, for their arbiter. You are all greatest and not greatest, or superior to objects, as A. Misra says, none being independent of the other. You are all possessed by one another's qualities. All are greatest in their own spheres, and all support one another. There is one unmoving life, wind, or breath, the yoga inhalation, so called, which is the breath of the one, or higher self. That is the or my own self accumulated in numerous forms. This breath, voice, self, or wind is the synthesis of the seven senses. Pneumatically, all minor deities, and esoterically, the sepentary of the army of the voice. Next, we see the cosmic matter scattering and forming itself into elements, grouped into the mystic four within the five-element ether, the lining of Akasa, the anima mundi, and mother of cosmos. Dots, lines, triangles, cubes, circles, and finally spheres. Why or how? Because, says the commentary, such is the first law of nature, and because nature geometrizes, I don't know if I said that right. Universally in all our manifestations, there is an inherent law not only in the primordial, but also in the manifested matter of our phenomenal plane, but which nature correlates her geometrical forms and later also her compound elements, and in which there is no place for accident or chance. It is a fundamental law in occultism that there is no rest or cessation of motion in nature. That which seems rest is only the change of one form into another, the change of substance going hand in hand with that of form, as we taught in occult physics, which thus seem to have anticipated the discovery of the conservation of matter by considerable time, says the ancient commentary in stanza 4. Quote, the mother is the fiery fish of life. She scatters her spawn, and the breath, motion, heats and quickens it. The grains of spawn are soon attracted to each other and form the curds in the ocean of space. The larger lumps coalesce and receive new spawn in fiery dots, triangles, and cubes, which ripen, and at the appointed time, some lumps detach themselves and assume spheroidal form, a process which they effect only when not interfered with by the others, after which law comes into operation, motion, breath, becomes the whirlwind and sets them into rotation, end quote. Stanza 4 continued, which is darkness, the boundless, or the no number, Adi Nardanda, Sabhavat, the circle, the Avadi Sanat, the number for he is one, the voice of the word, Sabhavat, the number for he is 1 and 9, the formless square, Arupa. And these three enclosed within the circle, boundless circle, are the sacred 4, and the 10 are the Arupa, subject formless universe. Then come the sons, the 7 fighters, the 1, the 8th left out, and his breath, which is the light maker. Adi Sanat, translated literally, is the first or primeval ancient, which name identifies the Kabbalistic ancient of days and the holy aged, the Sifra and the Adam Kadmon, with Brahma and the creator, called also Sani among his other names and titles. The Sabhavat is the mystic essence, the plastic root of physical nature. Numbers, the manifested, the number in the unity of the substance on the highest plane, the number of the Buddhist used, and a synonym for the fourfold anima mundi, the Kabbalistic archetypal world, from whence proceeded the creative formative, and the material worlds, the scintille or sparks, the various other worlds contained in the last three. The worlds are all subject to the rulers of or regents, rishis, and pitris, with the Hindus, angels, and the Jews and Christians, gods, and with the ancients in general. The circle, this means that the boundless circle, 0, becomes a figure or number only when one of the 9 figures precedes it and thus manifests its value and potency. The word or logos in union with the voice and spirit, the expression and source of consciousness standing for the 9 figures and thus forming with the cipher, the decade, which contains itself all the universe. The triad forms within the circle, the tetrachris, or secret 4, the square, within the circle, being the most potent of all the magical figures. The one rejected is the son of our system. The exoteric version may be found in the oldest Sanskrit scriptures. In the Rig Veda, Adadi, the boundless or infinite space, translated by Mr. Max Mueller, the visible infinite, visible by the naked eye, the endless expanse beyond the earth, beyond the clouds, beyond the sky, is the equivalent of the mother space. Coeval with the darkness, she is very properly called the mother of the gods, Deva Mantri, as it is form, her cosmic matrix, that all the heavenly bodies of our system were born, sun and planets. Thus, she described allegorically in this wise, 8 sons were born from the body of Adi. She approached the gods with 7, but cast away the 8th, Martanda, our son. The 7 sons called the Ardita are cosmically or astronomically the 7 planets, and the sun being excluded from their 7 shows plainly that the Hindus may have known, and in fact knew of a 7th planet without calling it Uranus. But esoterically and theologically, so to say, the Aditas are in their primitive and most ancient meanings the 8, the 12 great gods of the Hindu pantheon. The 7 allow the mortals to see their dwellings, but show themselves only to the Arhats, says old proverb, their dwelling standing here for planets. The ancient commentary gives an allegory and explains, quote, 8 houses were built by mother, 8 houses for her 8 divine sons, 4 large and 4 small ones, 8 brilliant sons according to their age and merits. Bal Ilu was not satisfied, though his house was the largest. He began to work as a huge elephant do. He breathed, drew into his stomach and vital airs of his brothers. He sought to devour them. The larger 4 were far away, far on the margin of their kingdom. They were not robbed, affected, and laughed. Do your worst, sir. You cannot reach us, they said. But the smallest wept. They complained to the mother. She exhaled Bal Ilu to the center of her kingdom, from whence he could not move. Since then, he only watches and threatens. He pursues them, turning slowly around himself, they turning swiftly from him, and he following from afar the direction in which his brothers move on the path that encircles their homes. From that day, he feeds on the sweat of the mother's body. He fills himself with her breath and refused. Therefore, she rejected him, end quote. Thus, the rejected son being our son, evidently as shown above, the sons refer not only to the planets, but to the heavenly bodies in general. Himself only a reflection of the central spiritual sun, Surya, is a prototype of all those bodies that evolve after him. In the Vedas, he is called the Loka Cheksha. Sorry, guys, I cannot pronounce that. The eye of the world, our planetary world, and he is one of the 3 chief deities. He is called indifferently the son of Devs and of Adati, because no distinction is made with reference to or a scope allowed for the esoteric meaning. This he is depleted as drawn from by 7 horses and by 1 horse with 7 heads, the former referring to his 7 planets, the later to their common origin from the one cosmic element. This one element is called figuratively fire. The Vedas teach that the fire verily is all the deities, Narada in Anguita. The meaning of the allegory is plain, for we have both the Daizan commentary and modern science to explain it, though the two, differ in more than one particular. The occult doctrine rejects a hypothesis born out of the nebula theory that the 7 great planets have evolved from the sun's central mass, not of this our visible sun, at any rate. The first condensation of cosmic matter, of course, took place about a central nucleus, its parent sun, but our sun, it is taught, merely detached itself earlier than all the others, as the rotating mass contracted, and in their elder, bigger brother, therefore not their father. The 8 Aditas, the gods, are all formed from the eternal substance, or the world stuff, which is both the 5th and the 6th cosmic principle, the uphadi, or basis of the universal soul, just as in man, the microcosm manas, and the uphadi of Buddha. There is a whole poem on the pragmatic battles fought by the growing planets before the final formation of cosmos, thus accounting for a similarly disturbed position of the systems of several planets and the plane of the satellites of some, of Neptune and Uranus, for instance, of which the ancients knew nothing, it is said, but being tilled over, thus giving them an appearance of retrograde motion. These planets are called the warriors, the architects, and are accepted by the Roman Catholic Church as the leaders of the heavenly hosts, thus showing the same traditions, having evolved from the cosmic space and before the final formation of the primaries and the annihilation of the planetary nebula. The sun, we are taught, drew into the depths of its mass all the cosmic vitality he could, threatening to engulf his weaker brothers before the law of attraction and repulsion was finally adjusted, after which he began feeding on the mother refuse and sweat, in other words, on those portions of ether, the breath of the universal soul, of the existence and constitution of which science is as yet absolutely ignorant. A theory of this kind having been propounded by Sir William Grove, who theorized that the systems are gradually changing by atmospheric additions or subtractions, or by the accelerations and diminutions arising from the nebular substance. And again, that the sun may condense gaseous matter as it travels in space, and so heat may be produced. The archaic teaching seems scientific enough, even in this age. Mr. W. Matthew Williams suggested that the diffused matter or ether, which is the recipient of the heat radiations of the universe, is thereby drawn into the depths of the solar mass, expelling thence the previously condensed and thermally exhausted ether. It becomes compressed and gives up its heat to be in turn itself driven out in a rarefied and cold state to absorb a fresh supply of heat, which he supposes to be in this way taken up by the ether and again concentrated and redistributed by the suns of the universe. This is about all close an approximation to the occult teachings of science ever imagined, for occultism explains it by the death breath given back by the Martiranda and his feeding on the sweat and refuse of mother space that could affect Neptune, Saturn, and Jupiter, but little would have killed such comparatively small houses as Mercury, Venus, and Mars. As Uranus was not known before the end of the 18th century, the name of the 4th planet mentioned in the allegory must remain to us as far a mystery. The breath of all the new of the 7 is said to the Bharaskara light making, because they, the planets, are all comets and suns in their origin. They evolve into the Manvarantic life from primordial chaos, now the nominum of irresponsible nebulae. By aggregation and a culmination of primary differentiations of the eternal matter, according to the beautiful expression in the commentary. Thus the sons of light clothe themselves in the fabric of darkness. They are called allegory, the heaven snails, an account of their, to us, formless intelligence, inhabiting unseen their starry planetary homes, and so to speak, carrying them as the snails do along with themselves in their revolution. The doctrine of a common origin for all the heavenly bodies and planets thus was, as we see, inoculated by the archaic astronomers before Kepler, Newton, Leibniz, Kant, Herschel, and Laplace. Heat, the breath, attraction, and repulsion, the three great factors of motion, are the conditions under which all the members of all this primitive family are born, developed, and die, to be reborn after a night of Brahma, during which eternal matter relapses periodically into the primary undifferentiated state. The most attenuated gases can give no idea of its nature to the modern physicist. Centuries of forces, at first the invisible spark of primordial atoms, differentiate into molecules and become suns, passing gradually into objectivity, gaseous, radiant, cosmic, the one whirlwind, or motion, finally giving impulse to the form, and the initial motion regulated and sustained by the never-resting breaths, the Dayan Kohens. Very interesting. And I'm going to do this last one. Then the second seven, who are the Lipka, produced by the three, word, voice, and spirit. The rejected sun is one. The sons are countless. Lipika, from the word lipi, writing, means literally the scribes. Mystically, these divine beings are connected with karma, the law of retribution, for they are the recorders or analysts who impress onto the invisible tablets of the astral light the great picture gallery of eternity, a faithful record of every act, and even though of man, of all that was, is, ever will be in the phenomenal universe. As said in the Isis, this divine and unseen canvas is the book of life. As it is the Lipika, who projected into objectivity from the passive universal mind the ideal plan of the universe upon which the builders reconstructed the cosmos after every pralaya. It is they who stand parallel to the seven angels of the presence, whom the Christian recognize in the seven planetary spirits, or the spirits of the stars. For thus it is they who are the direct eminences of the eternal ideation, or as called by Plato, the divine thought. The eternal record is no fantastic dream, for we meet with the same record in the world of gross matter. A shadow never falls upon a wall without leaving thereupon a permanent trace, which might be made visible by restoring to proper process, says Dr. Draper. The portraits of our friends or landscape views may be hidden on the sensitive surface from the eye, but they are ready to make their appearance as soon as proper developers are restored to. A spectra is concealed on a silver or grassy surface until by our necromancy we make it come forth into the visible world. Upon walls of our most private apartments, where we think the eye of intrusion is altogether shut out, and our retirement can never be profaned, there exist the vestiges of all our acts, silhouettes of whatever we have done. Dr. Jivas and Babbage believe that every thought displacing the particles of the brain and setting them into motion scatters them throughout the universe, and they think that each particle of the existing matter must be a register of all that has happened. Thus, the ancient doctrine has begun acquired rights of citizenship in the speculations of the scientific world. The 40 assessors who stand in the region of Amenti as the accusers of the soul before Osiris belong to the same class of deities as Lipika and might stand paralleled with not the Egyptian gods, so little understood in their esoteric meaning. The Hindu Chitragupta, who reads out the account of every soul's life from his register called Agara Sandhani, the assessors who read theirs from the heart of the defunct, which becomes an open book before whether Yama, Minos, Osiris, or Karma are all so many copies of variants from the Lipika and their astral records. Nevertheless, Lipika are not deities connected with death, but their life eternal. Connected as the Lipika are the destiny of every man and the birth of every child, whose life is already traced in the astral light, not fatalistically, but only because the future, like the past, is ever alive in the present. They may also be said to exercise an influence of the science of horoscopy. We must admit the truth of the latter, whether we will or not, for unobserved by one of the modern adepts of astrology. Now that the photography has revealed to us the chemical influence of the sidereal system by fixing on the sensitized plate of the apparatus Millards of stars and planets that hereto baffled the efforts of most powerful telescopes to discover them, it becomes easier to understand how our solar system can, at the birth of a child, influence his brain, virgin of any impression, in the definite manner and according to the presence of the zenith of such or another zodiacal constellation. And I'm going to leave it there. I hope you enjoyed. Sending each and every one of you love and light. I hope all of you have a wonderful and exciting weekend. Please be safe, be seen, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.